Lesson 4 is finally time to start working in Access. Although this may be a completely new environment for you, we're going to work in a very logical sequence. Make sure you stop after each lesson to follow along with your copies of the spreadsheet and your version of Access. This lesson is specifically on the Import Spreadsheet wizard, which we will use to bring the Excel spreadsheets into Access. Let's get started. First, we have to create a new database in Access. To do that, you simply open the Access program. I keep mine on my toolbar. Click Blank Database, and then you have to name your database right away. I'll name the file Integrate Access. So welcome to the Access environment. As you can see, it looks similar to other Office programs in that you have your menu on top, but like all Office programs, the workspace is different. In Access, we store data and objects called tables, and we create query objects to work with it. The objects are stored on the left side over here. The big area in the middle is where you work with your object. The blank table access automatically created when we open the new database is sitting there now. This table has one field called ID. A field is like a column heading in Excel where you label what lies in the rows beneath it. If you wanted to, you could start working in the database by changing the field names in the table to anything you want, such as employee name, and then start entering names. However, that is something we don't need to learn in this course. We will simply upload our data into Access from Excel spreadsheets, and Access will automatically create the tables we need. Let's close the table, and that will delete it permanently since we never used it. And now let's bring in our data. Click External Data, New Data Source, from File, Excel. Then select your file from the directory. Here I simply used C Integrate Access. And when the file name appears, we'll select Products. We are now in the Spreadsheet Import wizard. As you can see, the top button, which means Import, is checked, and you just click OK. On the next screen, you will see the field names and the rows of data. Click Next, and you will see that Access is giving you the option to change field names or field types. You can click each field column to check the field types, but as long as everything was set up correctly in Excel, everything will be fine here, and you can just click Next again. The next screen refers to the primary key. As mentioned in the prior lesson, the primary key is the name of a field that uniquely identifies each row of data, and the benefit of choosing it is that Access will tell you if you have duplicates, in which case you can go back to your spreadsheet, remove the duplicate, and re-import your data. It will also be the field that you use when you join tables together. Access will always try to assign a primary field if it doesn't exist. As previously discussed, we are choosing the product number field because it uniquely identifies each row. And then Next. At this point, we can assign the table a different name or accept the default, which is the sheet name. We will accept the default by clicking Finish. Next, click the Save Import Steps box and then accept the default name on the next screen. This will allow Access to do the process even faster next time, which I'll demonstrate in a subsequent lesson. Now click Save Import. We'll do the same with the next two tables on the screen. New Data Source. From File, Excel. Choose the file Salespersons this time. Click OK. First row contains column headings is not clicked, so we click it. Structure is OK. Pick our primary key, which is Salesperson. Accept the file name. Save the import steps for next time. And we accept the name of the file, Salesperson. New data source from File, Excel. Browse for the file. We accept all this. Choose the primary key. Transaction number. Save name of the file. Save import steps. And we're all set. We have successfully imported all three tables. As you can see, the tables for all three Excel files imported now appear and have the same names as the spreadsheets. You can double-click on them to open them up and look at what's stored inside, and you'll see it'll be identical to your Excel spreadsheet. You can also check the record count to see if it matches your spreadsheet. For example, transactions has 500 records, and so does your transaction sheet if you go to the bottom and deduct the header row. Note that any changes you make to the data will be permanent, so be careful not to do so. The tables, unlike Excel spreadsheets, have built-in filters. Let's take a look at the filter feature. The filter in the table is very easy to use and similar to what's available in Excel. The filter is used by simply clicking the down arrow to the right of the field name. Let's try out the filter by choosing the number filter for sales and selecting greater than 2,000. You can also choose this result for a specific salesperson, as I am demonstrating with salesperson 72610. First, click Select All to deselect all choices and pick number 72610. An easy way to get rid of the filter is to click the toggle filter icon as shown. This will turn off the filter and back on to the last settings whenever you want. If you close the table, it asks you if you want to save the design changes of the table. If you say yes, then when we open it again, we can toggle the filter back on. You can try all sorts of combinations with this filter. As long as you don't change any data in the cells and just work in the field name row, there is no risk of damaging your data. Congratulations! Now you know how to bring your data into Access, and this opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Beginning with the next lesson, we will join the newly imported tables together into one large virtual table. Lesson 5. Beginning with this lesson and the next several lessons, you'll learn how easy it is to build your reports using queries. A query is the name Access gives the object that allows you to work with your data in many different ways. Building the query is a one-time process, and you won't have to modify it as long as the structure of your spreadsheet stays the same. It doesn't matter how much your data changes or how many rows you have, your original query will handle it. In part 1 of this lesson, we will create a query that joins all the tables together, thereby creating a new, larger virtual table. This query will be more time-consuming to set up, but because it will be used by all subsequent queries, it will make them easier to create. We will call this first query the Data Combine query because it combines all the tables. I am breaking the lesson into 2 parts, not because it's difficult, but because it is your first query and I want to make sure we get off to a good start. So let's get started. We will begin by clicking Create and Query Design. A Show Table dialog box appears. The purpose of this box is to let you choose the tables that you're going to use in the query. Since the query will serve as the foundation for all the other queries we build, we will choose all the tables. You can do this a couple of ways. I prefer to hold the Shift key down and then click each table and then the Add button below. As you can see, the tables now appear in the upper, or what I call the palette section of the query. Another way to get the tables on the palette is to simply drag them from the table section. I will demonstrate it using the transaction table. This is an easy way too, and you can use either method. As you see, Access puts a suffix of 1 after the table name because it is a duplicate table. This allows you to use the same table twice in a query, although we have no reason to do it in this course. So this presents an opportunity to show you how to delete a table from a query. Simply click anywhere on the table so a field name is highlighted, then either hit the Delete key or right-click and choose Remove Table. The table is gone. We can rearrange our tables by clicking, holding, and dragging the name of the table. Since the transaction table connects to the other tables, it will be easier to work with if we put it in the middle. Now we will establish the relationships. This is something you only have to do one time in the entire course. Establishing relationships is essential to connecting the 3 tables in a way that we can effectively work with them as one. This enables us to eliminate doing VLOOKUPs in Excel and having to write a formula for every field of data you want to connect. Therefore, you get to eliminate a very time-consuming and error-prone process. To make a connection, you first have to find fields in your tables that can be used to connect the tables. As you can see, going from left to right, there are fields that have keys in front of them: product number, transaction number, and salesperson. That indicates that they're the primary key fields that we set up in the last lesson, and they, as mentioned in that lesson, are ideal for linking up the tables. We're going to drag the line from salesperson in the salesperson table to salesperson in the transactions table. Then we're going to double-click that line to set up the join properties. It's very important that the join properties are set correctly because you want to make sure that all your records appear. The safest way to do that is to pick the last choice, Show All Transactions. This assures that if there's a salesperson in the transactions table that doesn't match in the salesperson table, you'll still see the transaction. And you can go ahead and correct that by adding the salesperson to the salesperson table. We will do the same with the product table. We'll drag the product number from the products table over to the product number and transactions to create the connection line, and then we'll double click on the line to get into the join properties. We'll also say all transactions, the bottom choice. You may have noticed there are arrows pointing to product number in the products table and salesperson in the salesperson table. This just indicates that there is one possible choice for product number and one possible choice for salesperson number for all the records in the transactions table. This is a good thing and the result of the type of join you selected. If there are multiple product numbers and multiple salesperson numbers for each choice, you'd have a lot of duplicate records. Let's save what we've done. Simply click File, Save, and when the Save As dialog box appears, name it Data Combined. Click OK and your query is now saved, and you see it appears under the query objects at left. But we can't congratulate ourselves yet because we still have to choose the fields we want to appear in our query result. We will do that in the next lesson. In this lesson, you learn how to create a new query using the newly created access tables, and then you form relationships between your tables. In the next lesson, we will complete this query, which, as mentioned, will be the foundation for additional queries that will be used to create your reports. Welcome to part 2 of creating your first query. In part 1 of the lesson, we created the top half of the query by bringing in the tables we wanted to use. In part 2, we want to finish the job by choosing the fields we want to appear in our query result. When we are done, all fields can be accessed through this query. Before we continue the building process, let's spend a few minutes talking about the structure of the bottom of the query. As you can see, there is a grid that allows you to enter everything you need to get the results you want. The first 2 rows are simply the field and table names that you want to use in your results. As you will see, you can use your mouse to get the info in there, no typing required. The sort row allows you to determine the order you want your results to appear in. Like in Excel, you can choose multiple rows to sort by. You can either use the drop-down arrow or enter A for ascending and D for descending, and Access will complete the entry. This will be used in the next lesson. The row named Show contains a checkbox that allows you to choose whether you want the field to appear in your results. It will always default to the check state, meaning it assumes you want to show your selected fields in your results. However, if you are using the field for sorting purposes or to enter selection criteria, which I will explain next, then you would uncheck the box. The criteria row lets you enter single or multiple criteria that will allow you to return specific records that meet the criteria. Same as a filter in Excel. Criteria will be used in the next lesson. And finally, for now, if you want to do grouping and subtotals in your results, you can just click the totals icon above, and when the total icon is clicked, a total line appears on the grid that allows you to choose the fields or field you want a total by. We will begin using this for reporting in Lesson 8. So this is why I call the query the Swiss Army knife of access. It makes all reporting possible. There are additional forms it will take depending on what you're doing, but this is the majority of what you need to know about this particular query, which is called the select query. In the following lessons, when we build the report queries, you will learn more specifics about the different areas of the query grid. Let's start working in the grid to finish this query. We either drag or double-click the fields to get them into the lower half of the query. I will demonstrate both methods, but first we'll use a shortcut that Access provides us. It appears as an asterisk at the top of each table's field list. Let's drag it down from the transaction table and see what happens. Instead of seeing the field name on the top row of the grid, you see the table name followed by an asterisk. By using the asterisk, you have selected all fields in that table. The table a field belongs to also appears in the second row. And finally, the show row of the grid is checked by default, which is fine because you want to see all the fields in your query result. To see query results, you click the View button at top left, and now we can see what our query results look like so far. You can see every record in the transaction table, but we also want to see all the corresponding records from the products and salesperson table. So let's add those. As you see when you're in View mode, the View button toggles to Design mode. So let's click it, and now we're back in Design mode. The beauty of this type of select query is that you can go back and forth from Design View as often as you want until you get the results exactly as you want them. If you ever don't see the View and Design buttons, just make sure the Home tab is selected. Now, you may be tempted to use the same asterisk to bring in the rest of your records from the other tables, but the fields you used to make the joins would be duplicated, and that would make working with the data more difficult. So for example, you'd have 2 salesperson fields or you'd have 2 product fields. Let's do products first, and we will double-click everything but the product number that already appeared in the transaction table. As you can see, when you double-click, the field drops into the next available position. Now we will do salesperson. I will double-click name, but I will drag commission before name to demonstrate that by dragging, you can rearrange the order of the fields. You just put it over the field you want it to go in front of. To now move to the end, you hold the mouse over the top of the column until you see the down arrow and click to highlight the column and drag. You can also hit delete or right-click cut when the column is highlighted to get rid of it. You can't mess up your data in select queries because you're only changing how you view it. You never actually touch it, which is one of the beauties of the Access method. Also note that the order of your columns doesn't matter because, as you will see in subsequent lessons, when you start creating report results, you can move columns around in View mode. So that's it. Your first query is finished. Click the Save icon and click View. You'll see all the records and all the fields from the 3 tables are perfectly joined. And no matter how many changes there are to your data, you never have to touch the query again. You can close the query by clicking the Close button. So in this lesson, you built a foundation query that all your report queries will be based on. In the succeeding lessons, you will learn more about structuring queries as you produce your query results. Also, before we move on, you may have noticed that when we click Query Design in the very beginning of the query lesson, Access defaulted to the Select query. There are other types of queries that you can see right here. Of these 5, we'll also learn the powerful crosstab query, which functions like a pivot table and is well worth learning. The other queries are for adding, updating, and deleting data, and not needed in this course. That said, it's good for you to be aware of them since they are not difficult to learn and could help you if, in the future, you decide to start updating your data directly in Access. We'll see you in Lesson 7, where you'll start building your report queries.